Autism is a neurological development disorder associated with symptoms that include persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction across multiple contexts and restricted, repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities. World Autism Awareness Month happens every year in April. Welcome to Morning Coffee Guest. I'm your host, Simone Absalom Gale. After the break, we'll have a chat with our guests. Welcome back to Morning Coffee Guest. I'm your host, Simone Absalom Gale. Our guests today are autism advocate and founder of the Maia Chung Autism and Disabilities Foundation, Maia Chung, and managing director of Sun City Radio, Steve Billings. Thanks so much for coming to speak with us, lady and gentlemen.
Thanks for having me.
All right, first up, you, Maia, tell us, what is autism?
All right, I always take it from a point of anecdote because I'm not a medical care person. Autism is a spectrum disorder. It's not a disease, it's not a syndrome, and that is very important because many people believe that it is a disease, and as such, the stigma around it perpetuates. Autism will find you observing in an individual a reticence to speak, a reticence to interact with others, and odd behavioral practices like repetitive stuff. Once an individual, and this goes from baby to 80 because people of all ages have autism, once a person is unable to communicate, they start to behave oddly. When you behave oddly, it's quite logical for you to look odd. However, autism, being a disorder, affects no limb or facial feature or anything on the physical body. If a parent came to you with someone who had a defining feature of a challenge, if they had autism, it would be autism and whatever that is. So it's quite dangerous as a disorder on several levels because I could have autism, gone through the therapies because autism is treatable. And because it's not palpably obvious, I am open to abuse of different kinds because it's like having diabetes. You manage it, and you overcompensate in areas where you need to. However, people are looking at you and saying, but nothing wrong with her, nothing wrong with him. And as a result, no, something is wrong. They have a harder time at processing and interacting, and a lot of dangers lie in that.
The way you speak, though, one could recognize that you have personal experience with autism because you're a parent of a child who is autistic. Tell us about that journey so far.
All right, it began, he's my last son, I have 4 sons, and it began in the first 2 years of his life, whereby, obviously, if you have kids before, and this is the last one, you can watch and say, Johnny, do this and Quinn not doing that. By 18 months, he was not meeting verbal markers that his brothers would have met and other children that I would have interacted would have met. In addition to that, while I was at Carmack, I read an article years before he was born that specified what the things were that characterize this autism thing. There's a tendency to isolate, but there's also a tendency to walk like on tippy toe as a toddler. And I waited because as soon as I saw certain things within him the characteristics we just spoke of, I just heard a voice of autism. I had never up until that point heard anybody speak about autism. And me I said, God, me can't so special. This a family can't so special. This is not autism, I'm just slow. Genetically, his dad, our family are not talkers, we're introverts. So he could just be a late talker. It's obvious to us that he was hearing, because that would have been a watch thing. Anywho, I waited until he was on his way to 3. And we have good pediatric care in our family as well as general care. And they know I read a lot, my doctors. And the doctor finally pushed out, yeah, maybe we need to check for autism. And dealing with it over the period of years, as you asked me, what I decided to do in my faith, because I'm a Christian, is I decided to focus on the issues affecting me and then channel them out to others in order to distract myself and my family from worrying. Because you just got up on one crocus bag of worrying, see? And my third son said, Mommy, why you don't start a foundation? And I thought that was a good idea. And his journey, my son's journey, has been coupled in with the nation's journey, because previous to me just coming out and saying it, I never hear nobody else about this thing.
It wasn't a point of conversation.
Nowhere, no time.
So what are some of the difficulties that, if a parent is watching, what are some of the difficulties that they can expect, that they can obviously overcome in raising an autistic child?
All right, difficulties here, I'm going to focus on service provision. There is a limited amount of service provision for this cohort in the population, simply because it's not a conversation. So no one would know Simone has a baby who has autism. So nothing infrastructural or governmentally has been put in place that is solid enough to take on the burden of what actually is identified by WHO as a pandemic. Autism has been a pandemic for years.
So there are no schools for persons?
There are no schools, but the amount is minuscule as to the need. So starting a conversation, starting this foundation, I am a journalist, so my nucleus for that was actually, you go out there, find information, craft this foundation around it, do it in that format, and then spread the information, because you should know as a communicator and a media person, when you start a conversation, people start to listen. It drives ideas, it drives discussion, and also drives results. Like maybe now more people will say, oh, but I've been looking at Maia all this time and she have autism. She need a particular set of things to go through, like therapies and so, to regularize.
And it needs to be more accessible.
Yes, less limited schools. In the racial scale, it's embarrassing, right? Because 15% of the population is estimated to have autism, and this Jamaican population. So I don't know if we have 10 proper, 10, We have 14 parishes, 15% of 2.7 million, it's hundreds of thousands of people. I don't know if we have 10 autism-specific schools.
That's interesting. So we could be looking at some of our students and saying they're slow or they have learning disabilities when in fact they are autistic, and it can be treated and they can have good, wholesome lives if it's treated.
Yeah, I'll give you some examples. Elon Musk has Asperger's. He's autistic. It's on the spectrum.
Really?
Yeah. Temple Grandin, autistic, severe autism. Andy Warhol, one of the greatest, if not the greatest pop artist of the 60s, is autistic. What the autism does is it makes you behave in a manner not normally accepted.
All right, so we're talking about Autism Awareness Month in this conversation as well. Tell me some of the activities that usually happen during autism, and I'm going to bring you in, sir, Mr. Billings, soon, because you are also, you know, putting your 2 feet in to get involved. But generally, what generally happens?
All right. April is Global Autism Month, and when I got in the game, each nation and area has contextualized different things to commemorate the month. That's the first thing. One of our pivotal, if not our flagship thing this year, because we do different things every year, is media platforms to increase public service information dissemination. So I rolled up on Mr. Billings and Sun City, one of the largest stations in the St. Catherine area and growing, and I asked him, would you be willing to pioneer with my foundation and give us 30 minutes for the whole of Autism Month to do things like disseminate information?
I want to bring in Mr. Billings into the conversation at this point. Why get involved? Because there are a lot of charities happening in Jamaica, and, you know, sometimes corporate Jamaica would say, you know, what's in it for me? So why did you get involved?
Well, as it is right now, Sun City, we're very big on our civic responsibility. And when Maya had approached us, I mean, it was rapidly approaching April, which is Autism Month, Awareness Month. And after she approached me and I started doing my own research, it was almost as if Maia Chung is the poster girl for autism. When you're starting to do your Google online research, all I was seeing was her. So we had a meeting, had a discussion, and we decided that for the month of April, we'll be having a weekly discussion program, a 30 minutes reader program, in which we'll be able to increase the awareness of exactly what is happening and how big of an issue it is. You know, so we're very, very excited about that. That is just for the month of April, and I look forward to exploring more discussions with Maya to see what can be done outside of April. I mean, there's 12 months in the year, and this is an ongoing pandemic, as Maya would have said earlier. So it is very exciting times ahead, and wherever Maya leads with her charity, Sun City will follow. She has our full support.
And I thank them for that, because Sun City's mantra is radio with a difference, and making a difference. Listen, Simone, I'm glad you brought us on the show, because since the corona pandemic, autism used to be on the back burner of the national stove.
The conversation.
Yeah, corona fling away off of the stove completely. It has been wicked man times in these things, and it is terrible for the families.
I'm glad you're still pioneering the cause. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear about her work in her foundation. Stay with us. You're watching PBCJ's Morning Coffee Guest. Welcome back to Morning Coffee Guest. Our guests today are autism advocate and managing director of the Maia Chung Autism and Disabilities Foundation, Maia Chung, and managing director of Sun City Radio, Mr. Steve Billings. And before we went on the break, we segued into your work within the foundation. Tell me about some of the activities that you get up to.
All right, since its inception, we have been able to liaise with Tom Redcom and courts, creating the first autism kiosk where if you don't have internet, you don't have no money, you can't put credit on your phone, you can take a bills, go over Tom Redcom and get a plethora of reading and other types of material that we've put in place. We started to do a program among young people in the lower high school area where we did the Autism Ambassadors competition. And what that did was to try to spark those people, young people, you know, them not know nothing about this thing. So we want them to learn about it, and we are hoping and praying that 10, 20, 30 of them will start to look at that as a career. In Jamaica, you go back to how many schools, how much resources. We neither have the specialists that we need, nor the institutions, nor the money, nor the governmental support. So autism ambassadors. This year, I'm really proud of Sun City, and every media house has helped us, including PBCJ, because you air our documentaries locally made. But listen, the value of the sponsorship coming from Sun City is just under $250,000. That has never been done before by a media entity. And if you know media need them money. So this is a big step. They operate, as I said, under the mantra, radio with a difference, and they're about making a difference.
So what if another entity wants to get on board with the Maia Chung Foundation? How do they contact you?
Straight 876-435-5961. Our email is mcautism@gmail.com. And I'm commending everybody over the 14 years, because we turned 14 in this month, April 28th. PBCJ has helped, CVM has helped, TVJ has helped, ZIP has helped, IRI has helped, JIS has helped. The journalists that are my crew and my friends, they just rallied around this thing, because guess what? Even when I started the foundation in 2008, I'll get calls like last year during the pandemic, and a daddy will say to me, say, yo, me used to hear you talk on TV about this thing, you know. I have a youth, and I'm 6 now, and I have to whop it back to, you have YouTube, so they can go back to the videos and so on. So it's straight, no chaser.
Yeah, because you're now having them at home. Some of these parents
And
would
that's
have
not
brought
good.
them to various institutions and care,
And
but then
that's
you couldn't do that. You couldn't go to school. You couldn't go to daycare.
And it's not good for a different reason as well. Autism is an isolation disorder. It keeps you to yourself. One of the methodologies of breaking it is to integrate people into the society. So if you naturally predisposed to stay by yourself and Corona come lock you down in your yard, you're gonna have more problems there. The government, and when I say government, this is not partisan, government of Jamaica, we have to focus on this Corona crisis. We autism people understand that. And when we reach out to the private sector, to the executive agencies of government, everybody has helped. And we're calling for more help, because nobody who works at the foundation charges any fee. We have specialists do diagnostics. I don't get paid. It's non-profit, non-governmental. Carolyn Brown is on our board of directors. We give it all back to the people. And what I've noticed is in the last 3 years, there's been anecdotally an uptick in people crying out, finding out now that they're...
Because people are more informed.
Exactly. And that would happen. But the coronavirus, I'm not saying it catalyzed anything, but in the last 3 or so years, it just ramp up, it step up.
More people are...
Yeah, more and more and more. And what it is, anybody in this room, I'm not going to call down any negativity on people, right? But anybody in this room, it's genetic. So if it's in your genetics, it will be able to walk. We sitting here today might not have a affiliation to autism personally. The next thing you know, your grandniece, your little cousin, because it's in there and nothing is happening.
All right, talk about some of the workshop. We're talking about activities to keep the discussion going. But you have workshops with Michael and other centers around the region. What have you been doing there at the Michael?
All right, since last year, this is recent, and it was sparked by the foundation's advocacy. They have started to host special seminars to teach people how to deal with autism, not to be afraid, where they can go and what they can do. That's the solution. The first step is don't be in denial, parent. Whichever parent, if you see something, go get it checked. No one wants to have autism, but the longer you wait, is the worse it will be.
All right, over to you now, Mr. Billings. Tell me how this partnership is going to work and when can people listening to get the information?
So for the month of April, the program will be aired every Friday, 2 to 2:30 p.m., hosted by Maia herself. And in addition to that, we're also trying to explore how we can give some digital support. Outside of the ambit of radio, we're now talking about social media. We're now talking about these programs being aired, we can now put them in a podcast and put it on the streaming platforms. So everything now, well, these youngsters nowadays, it's no longer about the linear programming. They want the on-demand content. So if you miss the show, you can always hop on over to YouTube. You can hop on over to Google. You can go wherever the podcast is and you can consume the content. And I think it is an international issue, and it is an issue that affects not the old but also the young. And if the young persons are exposed to it from a very young age on their devices, it's a win-win for everyone involved, the media house as well as the charity.
That is true because, as you said, you remembered what you had learned at Karamak. So the more information we give our youngsters, the more informed decisions they will make in the latter stage of their life. Speaking about giving information, I hear that you're also doing motivational speaking at various clubs. The latest is Kiwanis. Tell me about that part of your advocacy.
All right, that began as soon as the foundation started because a lot of people associate philanthropic efforts with independently wealthy people. I don't reach yet. I'm gonna go.
You're on your way.
Yeah, I'm on my way. So what did I do? I requested from the PBCJs to carry a story on autism. I integrated my personal self in things like walking around to Lions clubs, Kiwanis clubs, and spreading the message that this thing is here. We need to do interministerials because it's a country issue. It's not a Simone issue. It's not a Steve issue. It is a country issue. If we don't deal with these individuals, what is going to happen is they're going to become problematic to a level that can be quite unfortunate. The motivational speaking was one way of me giving by time. Because in 2008, I'm working for CVM, I have 3 small kids, blah, blah, blah. I'd go around, help these people. And this coming latter part of April 19, the MICO, I have to big them up. They have really gotten on board. They're going to be having a comprehensive webinar on the issues that pertain to autism. And what they're going to do already have done is invite health people who specialize in this area from around the CARICOM to address us the April 19th to April 20th, if I'm not mistaken. So this is where I start to present. I've even represented Jamaica in the United States, giving a set of professors there in a motivational speech the context in which we operate. Autism, the symptoms are standard. However, a French autistic person is living a different life from a Jamaican autistic person because of the cultural mores and so on. In the local perspective in Jamaica, you'll hear a lot about bad luck and obia. There's a stigmatization about anything to do with the brain. In the Bible, there was this dude who was blind. Jesus rolled up on him and said, why are you sitting here? He went, he dragged himself into the pool and had restored sight, if I'm not telling it incorrectly. The point of that, though, is that the people watching asked Jesus, what did his parents do and what did the man do for him to be blind for so long? And Jesus actually said, this is a message and a conduit. The parents never did anything wrong. The youth never did nothing wrong. God is showing you something in His special way. This stigmatization is highly wrapped around it. People are ashamed. Oh, Simone have a baby and it keeps the child suffering, the child who will become the eventual adult. And even right now, you ask me the question that may I try motivate people for no say, listen, you have done nothing wrong. Come out of these superstitious belief systems, because what it's going to do is the 15% of persons who are believed to have autism cannot be rolled off the island. They're going to become all of us problem, whether you have autism in your life or not.
So you need to get going and keep the conversation going. And don't be ashamed.
And the work. Yeah,
don't be ashamed of it.
Yeah, it's easy to say, and I know that people feel embarrassed if they have a hair out of place, but this is our lives, and we don't want it to get into the ugly, crisis chronic. We want to stop the bull before it come out of the pen.
Yeah, man, as the great Bob Marley said, one love, one heart, let's get together. All right, so that's all the time we have, though, on Morning Coffee Guests. Thanks so much for coming to speak with us and delivering your message, the message of hope and the message of advocacy, volunteerism, and just to continue the fight against neurological disorders, especially autism. And thank you so much, Mr. Billings, for your advocacy, for stepping up as a responsible corporate citizen of Jamaica.
We try.
Thank you, and thank PBCJ. You guys are doing a phenomenal job.
All right, you've just watched Morning Coffee Guest. Thank you so much for viewing.